Welcome back to Inevitable Enlightenment, Part 2. We are looking for measurable scientific indicators of an impending transition. First, we're going to watch a 7-minute video clip of Greg Braden, a New York Times best-selling author who's renowned for bridging science and spirituality.
When I was an engineer, what I found was that engineers felt that they were left out of the conversation of spirituality, and because the language made no sense to an engineer. And I read a little book, it was a workbook called Awakening to Zero Point, in engineering terms to describe what's happening, what I saw happening in the late 1980s. And it caught on and was Xerox copied and ended up becoming its own book and its own phenomenon. And it described what we knew then. And for the most part, it's pretty accurate. There's some things that have changed. The bottom line was that within the changes that we are all feeling in our lives, as we look for reasons, say, what in the world is going on? You know, what's happening with the weather? What's happening? It seems like everybody's going to war. What's happening with my body? I don't sleep the way I used to. Or, my relationships have gotten really intense. As different as those all seem from one another, they're all related. What we know is that technically, and when I was a geologist, I could see this happening. The magnetic field of the Earth is in decline. It has been for the last 2,000 years. It looks like a chart on the New York Stock Exchange on a bad day. It's started declining. It's never gone back. So we're at the lowest point in planetary magnetics now that we have been in the last 2,000 years. We have seen Earth have this experience in the geologic record. We've seen this happen at least 14 times in the last 4.5 million years. And every time it happens, it precedes a flip, a 180-degree reversal of the magnetic field. So they get weaker and weaker. The magnetic fields decline. They get weaker and weaker and weaker until they drop to zero for a period of a few days, it looks like. Then the field reverses, and what used to be North Pole is South, the South Pole becomes North, and the fields begin to get stronger and stronger and stronger. The last time this happened looked like it was around maybe 9 to 11,000 years ago. At that time, we saw the melting of the last ice age. A lot of people believe Atlantis was here during that time, and as the ice melted, oceans rose, and that's why we don't see the continent of Atlantis anymore. There's a whole program we could do on that. We know that those fields are declining. We know that that's a fact. The scientists have believed that it's linear, that you can know where it was 50 years ago and know where it is today and draw a straight line and say this is where it's going to be. Based on that, they say it's about another 2,000 years before we go into a zero reversal. We know, however, that it is not linear. It's what's called a geometric decline, and what that means is that as the field declines, it declines quickly. Ancient calendars point to our time in history, the Mayan calendar, the Egyptian calendar, native oral traditions, both in North South America and the Tibetan traditions. They all say that something is happening at our time in history, and this is when time as we know it changes, and that the Earth as we know it changes. So scientists only within the last couple of years, mainstream publications have now admitted, they say, yes, we are in the early stages of a magnetic reversal. We don't know what that means. What we do know is that we're linked to those fields. Our emotions, our sleep patterns, our perceptions of time and space, how we feel about our relationships, our immune response, all those things are linked to the magnetic fields of the Earth, as well as the weather patterns. And this is something a lot of people aren't talking about. So the decrease of the magnetics is what is driving the weather patterns and the shifts that we're seeing right now, including global warming and those kinds of things. So we know those are happening, and they are giving us an opportunity. I think they're giving us an opportunity to know ourselves in the presence of conditions that are unlike what we've lived in the past. And what that means is it's an opportunity for us to demonstrate our mastery of who we really are in this universe, in this reality. Because in that mastery, those changes come much easier to us. It's in our resistance to our mastery, those changes are tough. So when we feel that we're limited beings, and that our health is so very fragile, and that the way that we live is so fragile. It is in some respects. In other respects, it's a direct mirror of what's happening inside of our bodies. So that was one parameter, the magnetics. The second was there's the fundamental heartbeat of the Earth the ancients talked about. The scientists first detected this in 1899. It's measured a number of different ways, but the bottom line is we know that that fundamental heartbeat is speeding up. And we all know that because everyone says time is speeding up. Every country I've been to, people say it seems like time is speeding up. Why is that? Every cell in our body is in resonance, trying to keep time with the heartbeat of our Mother Earth. And as that heartbeat increases, our cells are trying to metabolize and maintain their existence and match that increase, and we perceive that change as time speeding up. So to us, it feels like things are going faster because they are in that respect. Those two parameters together are physical parameters that can be measured that tell us where we are at this time in history. And all I can say right now is we've got very low magnetics, and the pulse of the planet is twice what it was in the mid-1980s. And we're not sure where that's going to go. But I also have to say, I know people who spend all of their time preparing for the moment that the world changes, whether it's burying boxcars of food in their backyard or building a shelter, that will protect them from whatever. And if people feel good about that, I think it's probably a good thing to do. My experience is, if you spend your life preparing for all the bad things, you miss life. And by living the life that crosses our paths and honoring those changes, when the frightening things happen to us, honor that fear and go through what the ancient traditions suggest that we go through to transcend that fear. And as we do that, it changes our bodies, and in that change, we've already prepared for whatever the earth is going to bring. Because as we change our beliefs, we are tuning our bodies to that pulse of the earth and to those magnetics. So rather than resist those things, the changes in the earth and the changes in our lives are the same, rather than separate, as some people would like to keep them separate. It's easier to think of.
So just to recap, Greg Braden said that Earth's geologic record shows that our magnetic field is in speedy decline and at a 2,000-year low. Similar declines in subsequent pole shifts have happened 14 times before, and the last pole shift was 9,000 to 11,000 years ago. Ancient scientists understood these grand celestial cycles and used them to map and predict future events. One of these cycles is known as axial precession, or precession of the equinoxes. Precession is a change in the orientation of the rotation axis. Right now, Earth's axis roughly points to Polaris, the pole star. In 10,800 BC, Earth's axis was pointed toward a different part of the sky. That large circular path of Earth's axis takes approximately 26,000 years. That's 1 degree every 72 years, which is why we don't see the sky change much in our lifetime. The yellow circle here provides another view of the path of the North Celestial Pole. Polaris, shown in a small red circle on the right, is our current North Pole star. It's right at the end of the Little Dipper handle. But in 13,000 years, our pole star will be Vega, shown directly opposite. This is astronomy. And during this 26,000-year cycle, each constellation in sequence comes into a prominent relationship with Earth, sending its distinctive energies to her. This is astrology. Until the 17th century, astronomy and astrology were one and the same science. The science of celestial bodies and their electromagnetic and positional impact on Earth and all its species. The sequence of star constellations Earth passes and absorbs energies from on its 26,000-year cycle is called the zodiac. It functions as a cosmic clock. It clocks or tracks or predicts the type of energies radiating toward Earth at any given time. It has the 12 symbols of the zodiac constellations representing the key celestial reference points in our 26,000-year precessional cycle. The hand on this clock represents Earth at the spring equinox. It's approaching 6 a.m., the dawning of the age of Aquarius, a long predicted time for a major transformation, a new epoch in human civilization. Once around the zodiac, past all 12 constellations, takes 26,000 years, and twice around takes 52,000 years, just as it takes twice around our 12-hour clock to complete the full day-night cycle. Let's take a look at our daily cycle on this wave graph. We rise at dawn on an upward curve, and we keep rising up to noon. This is the highest point of the energy wave in our day. Then we start the decline toward dusk at 6 p.m. and continue down into the darkest hours around midnight. And finally we start the last 6-hour stretch, moving us up toward another dawn. This flowing wave represents varying qualities of energy. In a 24-hour day, each 6-hour quarter has its own unique energy signature. We feel differently at 6 a.m. than we do at 6 p.m. or at midnight, right? The shape of this energy wave and these 4 transition points of noon, dusk, midnight, and dawn in our 24-hour day are mirrored on the grand scale. And that's part of the 2012 excitement. We're now at a major transition point, dawn. Here's the full epochal cycle of 52,000 years. It's the same wave shape as the 24-hour wave, but this time it spans all 24 zodiacal ages, made by Earth's polar axis going twice around the precessional circle. This long wave is made up of 4 quarters, just like our daily clock, with 2 segments comprising the day side and 2 on the night side. And, guess what? The dynamic of people being more energized in the daytime than at night also applies to this macrocosmic cycle. Just as an aside, some information from Vedic science. The segments in this long cycle are apparently not precisely 13,000 years each, as they're labeled here. Just as our awake time and our sleeping times in any day are not exactly 12 hours each. In the epochal cycle, the length of the day energy wave may be quite a bit longer than the night. Vedic scholar Robert Cox suggests the segment lengths are more like 20,000 years for the morning section, 15,000 years for the afternoon, 10,000 years, and then 5,000 years for the last section, the pre-dawn section. However, this wave is the general shape of the cycle's energy flow. According to Cox, based on the Vedas, civilizations existing during an epochal day have more energy. They are brighter than those existing during an epochal night. Remember Arnold Toynbee's graph of the rise and fall of major civilizations? Here it is again at the top. It dealt only with the last 5,000 years. That's a short bit of history, all falling within the pre-dawn part of the night of the epochal cycle. But we've finally arrived at dawn, and we want to know what was happening not 5,000 years ago, but 20,000 or more years ago, during the last epochal day. What was civilization like on Earth in the last epochal day? A large body of information exists on this prehistorical time period.